For a moment, no one spoke. The gangsters had expected begging, or anger, or fear. They got none of it. The crowd watched in silence, hearts pounding. If you were in Steven's place right now, would you stay calm and stand your ground? Or would you walk away to protect yourself? Because the situation was no longer just harassment. It was a test, and whatever happened next was going to reveal who truly held the power. Something was wrong. The gangsters could feel it, even if they didn't understand it. This wasn't how these situations usually went. People yelled back, people begged, people ran. But this man, this quiet garbage picker, did none of those things. Steven bent down and finally began picking up the spilled trash, one bag at a time, slow, controlled, almost peaceful. That calmness unsettled them more than any threat ever could. Why is he acting like this? One of the gangsters muttered under his breath. Another crossed his arms, eyes locked on Steven. "He's pretending," he said, trying to look tough. But even as he said it, doubt crept into his voice. Steven tied the bag neatly, lifted it, and placed it into the truck. Then he wiped his hands on his jacket and stood upright. His shoulders were relaxed, his breathing steady. He didn't look angry. He didn't look afraid. He looked centered. The leader of the group took a step closer, lowering his voice. "You think you're calm because you're not scared," he said. "But trust me, you should be." Steven met his eyes for the first time since the shoving started. There was no challenge in his gaze, no defiance, just quiet awareness. "I'm calm because I choose to be," Steven replied. That answer landed differently. A strange silence followed. The street noise seemed to fade. Even the bystanders felt it, something shifting, something they couldn't explain. A man near the shop whispered, "There's something about him." A woman nodded slowly. "He doesn't move like a regular worker." The gangsters noticed the whispers. "Stop staring at him like that." One snapped at the crowd. "He's just a trash collector." But even as he said the words, they sounded less convincing. Steven adjusted his gloves, then calmly reached for another bin. His movements were efficient, economical. No wasted motion. One gangster scoffed. "Still working like nothing happened." "That's what bothers me," another replied quietly. They had tried humiliation. It failed. They had tried fear. It failed. Now they were left with confusion. The leader clenched his fists. "Inu," he said. "Let's end this." He stepped directly in front of Steven, blocking his path again. "Last chance," he said. "Say it." Steven stopped. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. "Say what?" Steven asked. "Say you're nothing," the gangster replied. "Say you're beneath us." Steven looked around, not at the gangsters but at the people watching, at the shop owners, at the pedestrians, at the young boy holding his mother's hand, eyes wide. Then he looked back at the gangster. "I won't lie," Steven said quietly. "Not about myself. And not for you." The leader's face tightened. "You really don't know when to quit." Steven tilted his head slightly. "I do," he said, "and this isn't it." That was when it clicked. One of the gangsters took a step back, frowning. "Bro, doesn't he look familiar to you?" Another shook his head. He's nobody." But the doubt was there now, crawling into their confidence like a crack in glass. Steven turned away, not in defeat, but with intention, and picked up another bin. The leader stared at his back, confused and furious. "Who does this guy think he is?" Steven paused. Just for a second, he didn't turn around. He didn't raise his voice. He simply said, "Somebody who knows who he is." That sentence hit harder than any insult. The crowd felt it. The gangsters felt it. Even the street itself seemed to go quiet, because in that moment it became clear. This was no ordinary garbage picker, and whatever truth they were about to uncover, it was going to change the balance of power completely. The doubt wouldn't go away. One of the older men standing near the corner store had been watching silently from the beginning. He hadn't laughed. He hadn't filmed. He had simply observed, ears narrowed, head tilted slightly as if studying a familiar shape from memory. Now, he stepped closer. He looked at Steven's face again. Not the clothes, not the gloves, the face. His expression changed. The morning air was cold and quiet when Steven Seagal stepped out of the garbage truck. He wore faded work gloves, a worn jacket, and a cap pulled low over his face. To anyone passing by, he looked like just another garbage picker, starting a long, exhausting shift before the city fully woke up. He moved calmly, lifting heavy trash bags and placing them into the truck, one by one. There was no rush in his movements, no complaint on his face, just quiet focus. A few people walked past without giving him a second glance. To them, he was invisible. Then everything changed. A black SUV screeched to a stop nearby. The doors swung open, and a group of well-dressed gangsters stepped out, laughing loudly, their confidence filling the narrow street. Gold chains glinted under the streetlight. Their presence demanded attention. One of them noticed Steven. "Hey, trash man," the gangster called out, his voice dripping with mockery. "You missed a spot." The others laughed. Steven didn't respond. He bent down, picked up another bag, and continued working as if he hadn't heard them. That only amused them more. Another gangster stepped closer, blocking his path. "Did you hear me?" he said. "Or are you too busy playing with garbage?" Steven slowly looked up, not with anger, not with fear, but with calm, steady eyes. "I'm just doing my job," he said quietly. That answer wasn't good enough. One of the men kicked a loose trash bag toward him. It burst open, spilling waste across the pavement. "Then clean that up," he sneered. "That's all you people are good for." People nearby began to slow down. Some stopped completely. A woman across the street frowned. A man near a shop shook his head but said nothing. No one stepped in. Steven stood there for a moment, surrounded by laughter and insults. Then, without a word, he knelt down and began picking up the spilled trash with his bare hands. The gangsters laughed even harder. What they didn't realize, what no one there realized, was that this quiet garbage picker was not weak, not powerless, and definitely not who he appeared to be. And very soon, the truth was going to change everything. The gangsters took Steven's silence as permission. One of them leaned against the black SUV, arms crossed, watching with amusement as Steven cleaned up the mess they had created. "Look at him," he said to the others. Doesn't even talk back. These guys know their place. Another gangster pulled out his phone, pretending to record. "This is real life entertainment," he laughed. "A grown man picking up trash like it's his destiny." Steven said nothing. He simply tied the torn bag, lifted it carefully, and carried it toward the truck. His movements were slow, controlled, almost deliberate. There was something unusual about the way he carried himself. But the gangsters were too full of themselves to notice. They followed him. "Hey," one of them snapped, stepping in front of the truck. "Who said you could walk away?" Steven stopped. "I need to finish my route," he replied calmly. The gangster smirked. "Your route can wait. We're talking to you." The street felt smaller now. The laughter faded into a heavy silence, broken only by distant traffic. A few bystanders had gathered, shopkeepers standing in doorways, pedestrians pretending to check their phones while secretly watching. Someone quietly raised their camera and started recording. One gangster circled Steven like a predator. "Tell me something," he said. "How does it feel knowing this is all you'll ever be?" Steven met his gaze. "Work is work," he said. "There's dignity in honest labor." That answer annoyed them. "Dignity?" Another man scoffed. "You smell like garbage. You think dignity lives there?" He shoved a trash bin toward Steven, stopping just inches from his legs. Steven didn't flinch. He steadied the bin and moved it back into place. The gangsters exchanged looks. They had expected fear. They had expected anger. Instead, they got calm, and that made them uncomfortable. More people had stopped now. A middle-aged man whispered, "Why are they doing this to him?" A woman shook her head. "Just because of his job." The men noticed the attention and leaned into it. "Look around," one of them said loudly. "Nobody cares about you. Nobody's coming to help." Steven glanced at the crowd, not pleading, not accusing, just observing. Then he looked back at the gangsters. "I'm not here to fight," he said. "I just want to work." That should have ended it. Instead, it fueled them. One gangster stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You should be grateful we're even talking to you." The air grew tense. The kind of tension that makes people hold their breath. Have you ever seen someone humiliated just because of who they are? And before we continue, tell us in the comments, which country and city are you watching from right now? Because what was happening on that street wasn't just about one garbage picker. It was about power. And power was about to be tested. The laughter stopped. It wasn't sudden, but it faded into something darker, something heavier. The kind of silence that comes right before things turn ugly. One of the gangsters stepped forward, his smile gone, eyes hard now. "You think you're special?" he asked Steven, standing there like you're above us. Steven tightened his grip on the trash bag he was holding, then gently placed it inside the truck. Only then did he turn back to face them. His voice was calm, steady, almost respectful. "No," he said, "I just believe everyone deserves respect." That was the moment everything crossed the line. The gangster laughed sharply and shoved Steven in the chest. It wasn't hard enough to knock him down, but it was deliberate. A warning. A message. Gasps rippled through the small crowd. A woman covered her mouth. Someone whispered, "This is getting bad." "Did you see that?" The gangster said loudly, looking around. He didn't even fight back. Another man grabbed a trash bin and kicked it over. Metal clanged against the pavement as garbage spilled everywhere, rolling toward Steven's feet. "Clean it," the man ordered. "That's what you're here for." Steven looked down at the mess. For a brief second, the street felt frozen in time. Everyone watched, waiting to see what he would do next. Slowly, Steven bent down. But this time, he didn't immediately pick up the trash. He paused. Then he looked up and said quietly, "Respect is free. It doesn't cost anything." The gangsters burst into laughter. "Listen to him," one mocked. "The trash man's giving life lessons now." Another leaned in close, his breath heavy with arrogance. "What are you going to do if we don't respect you? Sweep us?" Steven straightened up. His posture changed. Not aggressive, not threatening, but grounded, solid, as if something deep inside him had settled into place. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he said, "but I won't accept being treated like I'm nothing." That response surprised them. The leader of the group narrowed his eyes. "You don't get to decide what you accept." He shoved Steven again, harder this time. Steven staggered, but he didn't fall. His boots scraped against the pavement as he caught himself. Still, he didn't raise his fists. He didn't shout. He didn't insult them back. Instead, he exhaled slowly. That calm made the gangsters uneasy. "Why aren't you scared?" one of them asked. Steven didn't answer. Phones were up everywhere now. People were openly recording. A man whispered to his friend, "This is going to end badly." One of the gangsters noticed the cameras and smirked. "Good," he said. "Let the world see what happens when trash forgets its place." He stepped closer, pointing a finger inches from Steven's face. "Say it," he demanded. "Say you're nothing." Steven looked at the finger, then at the man behind it. His eyes were calm. But there was something else there now. Control. Discipline. Years of restraint. "I won't say that," Steven replied. The leader clenched his jaw. Wrong answer. He raised his hand. The crowd tensed. Someone shouted, "Hey, that's enough!" Steven didn't move. The hand stopped midair, not because of fear, but because something about Steven's presence had changed the atmosphere. The gangster hesitated, suddenly unsure. Steven spoke again quietly but firmly. "You don't need to do this," he said. "This isn't who you want to be." That did it. The gangster stepped back, furious. "You think you know me," he snapped. "You're a nobody." The insult hung in the air. Steven nodded slowly. "If that makes you feel powerful," he said, "then believe it." That response took the wind out of them. "Wait," the man murmured, barely audible. "That can't be." The gangsters noticed him staring. "What are you looking at, old man?" One of them snapped. The man didn't answer. He took out his phone, hands shaking slightly, and discreetly opened a browser. He typed something, then raised the screen toward his own face, comparing the image with the man standing beside the garbage truck. His eyes widened. "No way," he whispered. A woman beside him leaned over. "What is it?" "That guy," the man said slowly. never taking his eyes off Steven. He looks exactly like who? She pressed. He swallowed. Like Steven Seagal. The name landed quietly at first. Then louder laughter erupted from the gangsters. Steven Seagal. One of them scoffed. The action movie guy? Another burst out laughing. Yeah, right. And I'm Bruce Lee. They slapped each other on the shoulders, mocking the idea. Look at him, one said. You really think a movie star would be picking up trash? Steven heard the name. For the first time, his hands paused. Not out of fear, not out of pride, out of understanding. He slowly set the trash bag down and straightened his back. He didn't confirm it. He didn't deny it. He simply stood there, silent, as if giving the moment space to breathe. The older man stepped closer now, voice trembling. I've seen his movies, he said. I trained martial arts when I was younger. I know that stance. I know that calm. The leader of the gang frowned. You're saying this guy is some kind of celebrity? I'm saying, the man hesitated. He's not who you think he is. That was the crack. One of the gangsters looked at Steven again, really looked this time, at the posture, the way he carried his weight, the stillness that felt controlled, not passive. Another pulled out his phone and discreetly zoomed in on Steven's face. His expression changed. Bro, he whispered, this is weird. Steven finally spoke. I never said I was anything special. He said calmly, I just wanted to be treated like a human being. That sentence hit harder than the laughter ever had. The crowd grew quieter. People leaned in. The tension shifted from aggression to uncertainty. The leader tried to laugh it off. So what if you look like him? He said. A lot of people look like famous guys. Steven met his eyes. Maybe, he replied. But how you treated me, that part is real. The leader opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. The older man shook his head slowly. You humiliated him because of what he was wearing, he said. Not because of who he is. A few people nodded. Someone whispered, that's true. Steven took a breath. If I were nobody, he continued, would that make it okay? No one answered. The gangsters shifted uncomfortably. Their confidence had cracks now. Their jokes felt hollow. The power they thought they had was slipping. One of them muttered, this is getting stupid. Another said, let's just go. But the leader stayed. His pride wouldn't let him back down yet. You think people care who you are? He snapped. Steven looked at him for a long moment. It already has, he said. The crowd felt it. Because the truth was no longer a joke. It was standing right there in front of them. And in the next moment, it would become undeniable. The street felt different now. Not loud, not aggressive. Just tense. Like everyone was waiting for the final piece of a puzzle to fall into place. One of the younger bystanders, who had been recording silently from the beginning, stepped forward. His phone was still pointed at Steven, but his expression had changed from curiosity to disbelief. Guys, he said quietly. I just paused the video and zoomed in. He turned the phone around. On the screen was Steven's face, older, calmer, unmistakable, side by side with a still image pulled from the internet. The resemblance was undeniable. That's him, the young man said. That's Steven Seagal. The words spread through the crowd like electricity. No way. It can't be. That's actually him. Murmurs turned into gasps. People leaned closer. Phones came up everywhere, not to mock but to confirm. One of the gangsters grabbed another phone, typing furiously. His face drained of color as image after image appeared on his screen. Same eyes, same jawline, same presence. Oh damn, he muttered. The leader of the group stood frozen. The confidence he'd worn so easily just minutes ago cracked completely. His chest rose and fell as if the air itself had grown heavier. You're him? He asked, his voice suddenly uncertain. Steven didn't answer right away. He slowly removed his gloves, folded them neatly, and placed them on the edge of the truck. Then he looked around. Not at the phones, not at the crowd, but at the men who had humiliated him. I never said I wasn't, Steven said calmly. And I never said I was. The silence that followed was absolute. The leader swallowed hard. Why? Why didn't you say anything? Steven looked him straight in the eyes. Because it shouldn't matter. That was the moment everything collapsed. The gangsters' shoulders slumped. Their posture changed. The arrogance was gone, replaced by discomfort, and something closer to shame. One of them spoke quietly. "We thought you were just a garbage picker." Steven finished for him. The man nodded, unable to look up. Steven glanced down at the street, at the spilled trash that had started all of this. "Then remember this," he said. "How you treated me when you thought I was nobody." No one laughed now. The leader took a step back. "We didn't know," he said. "If we had," Steven raised his hand gently. "That's the point," he said. "You shouldn't need to know." The crowd reacted immediately. People nodded, some clapped softly. Others shook their heads in disbelief, not at Steven, but at the gangsters. A woman spoke up. "You showed your real character," one of the gangsters muttered. "This is bad. This is really bad." Steven didn't smile. He didn't gloat. There was no victory in his expression, only calm clarity. "I've played strong men on screen," he said. "But real strength is how you treat people when no one's watching." The leader looked down. "We crossed the line," he admitted. Steven studied him for a moment. "That line was crossed long before today," he said. "You just didn't think anyone would call it out." The crowd felt the weight of that truth. If you were in Steven's place, would you forgive them for what they did? Type yes if you believe in forgiveness, or no if you think actions should always have consequences. Because this moment wasn't just about identity anymore. It was about accountability, and what happened next would decide how this story ended. The crowd didn't disperse right away. No one seemed ready to move, as if the street itself needed time to absorb what had just happened. The gangsters stood in silence, no longer loud, no longer laughing. The power they had flaunted earlier had vanished, replaced by the heavy awareness of being seen, truly seen, for who they were. Steven Seagal reached for his gloves and slipped them back on. That simple action said more than words ever could. One of the gangsters finally spoke, his voice low. "We messed up," he said. "We judged you by your clothes, by your job." Steven nodded once. "That's how it usually happens," he replied, quietly until it's too late. A few people in the crowd began to clap, slowly at first, then louder. Not for fame, not for movies, but for dignity. The gangsters backed away, one by one. No threats, no excuses. Just silence and embarrassment. Their black SUV pulled away without the confidence it had arrived with. Someone whispered, "They'll never forget this." Steven turned back to his work. That surprised everyone. He didn't pose for photos. He didn't lecture the crowd. He picked up the remaining trash, tied the bags, and lifted them into the truck as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But everything had changed. Within hours, the videos appeared online. Different angles. Different voices. The same story. Headlines spread across social media. Gangsters humiliate garbage picker. Then discover he's Steven Seagal. A lesson in respect caught on camera. You never know who you're judging. Millions watched. Comment sections exploded with anger, support, and reflection. Some praised Steven's self-control. Others admitted they'd been guilty of the same kind of silent judgment in their own lives. When a reporter finally reached Steven for a comment, his response was simple. "I wasn't testing anyone," he said. "I was working." The lesson revealed itself. The clip kept spreading. Schools shared it. Community leaders referenced it. People used it as an example of how quickly dignity can be taken, and how powerful it is when someone refuses to lose it. As for the gangsters, their faces became symbols of something they never intended to represent. Arrogance without consequence, exposed in public. Steven never mentioned their names. "I don't want them punished by hate," he said in a later interview. "I want them remembered by the lesson." He spoke about respect, about humility, about how society often confuses worth with appearance. Some of the strongest people in the world, he said, are the ones you walk past every day without noticing. The garbage truck finally rolled away, disappearing down the street. But the message stayed. Because this wasn't just a story about Steven Seagal, it was a story about how we treat people when we think they don't matter. And before you scroll away, ask yourself one thing. Would you have acted differently before you knew the truth? If you believe every person deserves respect, no matter their job, clothes, or status, type respect in the comments. And subscribe for more powerful stories that remind us who we are and who we should be.